Welcome to Storytimer at Large. Patricia and Martin Dumler and Mary Wilson, 1969, Ohio. Martin Dumler and his wife Patricia Dumler and her mother, Mrs. Mary Wilson, were at the Dumler home at 1192 Beverly Hills Drive in Cincinnati. With the three adults were the Dumlers' two young children on the evening of October 22nd, 1969. Mary Wilson was staying over because her husband, Patricia's dad, Frederick, was in the hospital recovering from a heart attack. Halloween was coming up, and the family had carved two smiling jack-o'-lanterns and set them out as decorations. Martin Dumler had returned home from work about 8 p.m. that evening. The family had plans to visit Frederick Wilson in the hospital. A babysitter, Mary Schroer, had come to the house, but Frederick had called and said he wasn't up to having visitors. So Mary Schroer left after chatting for a while. The children were put to bed. Mary Wilson decided to spend the night as well. Maybe they would try to visit Frederick the next day. The Dumler family was well known and well-to-do. Martin Dumler II was the son of a wealthy industrialist and art collector. He had inherited a fortune when his father had passed away in 1958. Martin Dumler II was often in the paper for his participation in golf tournaments and deep-sea fishing. The couple were members of a country club and lived in a beautiful home in a very desirable neighborhood. Patricia Dumler modeled clothing at a friend's upscale dress shop. The Mount Lookout neighborhood in Cincinnati was hilly and wooded. It was home to many of the other wealthy families of Cincinnati. Driving through the neighborhood was like looking through the pages of Better Homes and Gardens or Architectural Digest. It's a type of neighborhood that most people dream about. The homes are relatively close together, however. These aren't those big mansions behind high walls with vast lawns. It looks like a lot of suburban neighborhoods, only quite a bit more wooded, and it looks like efforts were made to preserve the trees that existed there when the homes were built. On the morning of October 23rd, 1969, the Dumlers' children were worriedly knocking on their parents' bedroom door. They were unable to wake their parents. They also could not find their grandmother, so the two children went to a neighbor lady. She saw the family housekeeper, Ruby, arriving. I'm sorry I wasn't able to find Ruby's last name. She sent the children to tell Ruby about their parents. Ms. Ruby knew that Mrs. Dumler never closed that bedroom door because it was tricky and often locked them out. Didn't work very well. The fact that the door was closed immediately worried Ruby. Ruby kept the children away as she managed to get into that bedroom. She found the Dumlers and Mrs. Mary Wilson had been brutally murdered. She did not enter the bedroom, but called the police from a phone in another room. The three adults had been tied up and then shot and then untied and then stabbed. Someone wanted to be very sure that they were dead, it seems. But also, this is a strange murder. We'll talk more about that as we go along. In order to tie the three adults up, the killer used electrical cords and cords pulled from appliances around the house. The cords were taken away after the murders by the killer. So he tied them up, did all the things he wanted to do, killed them, untied them, and took those cords away. The Bricka family in 1966 murders, that was a home invasion murder of a mom, dad, and young child. Their murders, also the cords were taken away after tying them up, murdering them, untying them, taking the cords away. It's very strange detail in both of these. There were no signs of forced entry. Many people in those days did not lock their doors until right before going to bed. Most people did not have alarms on their homes. The 1970s and 1980s, there's great violent crime waves that came along. Those decades would change that. Now, almost everybody has some sort of alarm on their home, um, and some sort of ring doorbell, some cameras, that kind of thing. But that was unheard of, even in wealthier neighborhoods in 1969. A neighbor of the Dumlers reported that a .38 caliber pistol had been taken from his unlocked car on October 20th, 1969, 2 days before. So was this a neighborhood stalker responsible for this theft? And what caliber weapon was used in this murder? I wasn't able to find that. I'm going to keep digging though, but I hadn't yet found reporting of the caliber. A University of Cincinnati student returning home that evening reported seeing a man sitting in a parked car in front of the Dumler home on the evening of the murders. The women weren't sexually assaulted, according to newspaper articles in 1969. Many valuables were left in the home. The usual motives don't seem to appear here. And some have theorized, maybe this was a professional hit. Maybe someone who hoped to inherit did this. Maybe, put someone up to this, paid someone to do this. But the usual motives don't seem to fit here. If this is a hit, it's a messy, risky, amateurish hit job, in my opinion. And like I said, these murders have some similarities to the Bricca family murder. The cords being taken away after the murder was something that was also done in the Bricca home invasion murders. And the fact that both of these took place in the bedroom of the homeowners, the parents of the home. So not taken down to the basement, not done in the kitchen, not everybody in different rooms, but this killer herded everybody into the bedroom, the primary bedroom. It seems significant to me. So yeah, I don't think this is a murder with a regular motive. Robbery, jealousy, inheritance don't ring true here, to me. I think this killer just really wanted to kill. He wanted to kill a perfect little family. I think this killer felt bitter about his life. Perhaps he felt he had a lack of success in life. I think this killer also committed the 1966 Bricca family murders in the desirable Bridgetown neighborhood of Cincinnati. In both crimes, the bindings were taken away, as I said before. Both families were young, good-looking, successful people with young children living in nice neighborhoods. I think they had everything that this killer wanted in life. I think this killer did a lot of stalking in neighborhoods. I think he drove through and walked through nice neighborhoods and made a lot of plans. I think this is how he filled up his time. I think the Dumler children in this murder were spared because they didn't wake up. It's theorized in this murder of the Martin and Patricia Dumler and Mary Wilson that the killer used pillows and towels and things to sort of silence the gun. And that to me shows that he's learning from his earlier mistake. In the Bricca family murders in 1966, I think Debbie Bricca was killed pretty much only because she woke up and went to her parents' room. I think Debbie saw the killer and she ran to hide under her bed. Police at the time theorized that she was hiding under her bed and was dragged out and then was killed. I think the killer had to eliminate her then because she could possibly identify him. But he's not averse to killing children. I don't think the children were the targets for him in these murders. That wasn't his plan. I think this killer could have been inspired by the murders of the Clutter family, detailed in the 1966 book In Cold Blood. He could have also been inspired by the Manson family murders in the summer of 1969. And I think that murderer is Eugene William Gall Jr. I've written a lot about him, I've talked a lot about him, but he stands out to me as a very unusual predator. He's not your average murderer. Let's talk about him for a little bit. Who is Eugene William Gall Jr.? So he was born in 1946 in Texas. His father was a colonel in the Army. And after retiring, his father was a postal carrier. So would have worn the U.S. Postal Service uniform. So Eugene William Gall Jr. grew up in Hillsboro, Ohio. After high school, he went into the Army, following his dad in the Army. So he's doing this thing where he's trying to impress his dad. And, by all accounts, he had a very violent childhood. His dad was not a nurturing person, as a lot of men of that age who had grown up in the Great Depression and World War II, and they weren't, nurturing was not a thing that was encouraged in men. It was, get those kids toughened up. So Gall grew up there in Hillsboro, Ohio. It's a town east of Cincinnati. Nice little town. So when Gall goes away to the Army, there's a lot of pressure for him to be really successful in the Army. A lot of family pressure there. But by 1964, Gall had been apprehended in the act of being a peeping Tom, quote unquote peeping Tom, as they called it then. So he was a stalker. His activities must have been serious because he was no longer in the Army very soon after. And this is the Army of the early 60s. A lot of things would get overlooked as long as you could get out there and shoot that gun. He was back in Hillsboro with his parents in '64. He later married and had a child. By 1970, he was living in Middletown, Ohio, with his family. He was traveling, though, to Lima, Ohio, very frequently, stalking girls and women so regularly that he had become known as the Friday Night Rapist. So his crimes in Lima were so regular that the nickname became the Friday Night Rapist. He was found guilty of multiple rapes, armed robberies, and abductions. Ohio, however, decided to set him free in April of 1977. He then abducted, raped, and murdered 11-year-old Beth Ann Mote in Dayton in October 1977. He tied her to a tree and stabbed her in the chest. While Beth Ann Mote's case was still being investigated, he abducted, raped, and murdered Lisa Jansen in April of 1978. He shot her at point-blank range and dumped her body in Kentucky. He also shot and killed a police officer in Kentucky while being apprehended for an armed robbery that he committed on that very same day as the Lisa Jansen abduction, rape, and murder. The armed robbery, it's important to note, was not just robbing a store clerk at a gas station or something like that. He robbed an entire store full of customers at a sort of mini-mart. He shot and wounded a woman there. So he pulled this gun and held up everybody, taking their personal items, money out of their wallets, money out of their handbags. That's really brazen. He's a person who's not worried too much about the risk involved. He's not worried about people seeing his face. Between those two violent incidents of murdering Beth Ann Mote and murdering Lisa Jansen. Between those two, he abducted a group of children from a bus stop in Beaver Creek, Ohio, and herded them into a house early one morning. So they're waiting for their school bus, and he decides, he sees them, he pulls over, herds them into a home. He tied everyone up, including the homeowner. Again, we're seeing a lot of tying up people. So he's tied everyone up. He raped the girls. He stole money from the homeowner and then left. That crime was never prosecuted. I assume authorities felt they had enough with Beth Ann Mote's murder and Lisa Jansen's murder and the murder in Kentucky to make sure that he was never going to get out. And rape and abduction, as we saw earlier, didn't carry a heavy sentence then. It wasn't considered a violent crime. So more than likely they're hoping to get him into jail with his more violent crimes that would carry a heavier, longer sentence. Eugene William Gall Jr. is still in jail. He's serving a life sentence. He is eligible for parole. He was last up for parole in 2021, and thank goodness that parole was denied. I have trouble believing that he started murdering people in 1977. I think he had been doing it since 1964 probably, and getting away with it, because he committed crimes in different jurisdictions. I think that's how he got away with it. In the 1960s and 70s, police were very sort of territorial about sharing case information. They seemed to want the credit or glory for any apprehensions and convictions all to themselves and didn't want to share. So no one was saying, hey, this murder in our town looks like that murder in your town, and maybe we should get together on this and compare notes. But they didn't do that then. That's a thing they do now, but more often they do that now, but not then. And no one really had any idea at the time what a serial killer was. This kind of crime wasn't on their radar at all. You know, everybody had heard of Jack the Ripper, but everybody's still kind of filing that away as, oh, that was one super deranged guy way back in the olden days, and that kind of thing doesn't happen anymore. But of course it did happen. It happened all the time. They just weren't paying attention to that. They weren't looking at the bigger picture, in my opinion. I think that Eugene William Gall was thinking about committing these types of violent crimes from a very young age. Patricia Dumler was only 27. Martin Dumler was just 28. Mary Wilson was only 52. But there's no statute of limitations on murder. Even though this murder is from a long time ago, it still deserves to be solved and to be resolved. You know, people want to know who did this and why. If it's not Eugene William Gall Jr., is it someone else? You know, are they still out there? Frederick W. Wilson Sr., Mary's husband and Patricia's father. I thought about him a lot when I was researching this. I was like, he's in the hospital, he's recovering from a heart attack, and then someone had to go and give him the news that his daughter, his wife, and his son-in-law had all been murdered in the house where his grandchildren were sleeping. I wondered, how did he cope with that? He's already recovering from a heart attack. My gosh, I wonder if they delayed telling him for a while. I don't know. But he did not live many more years. He sadly passed away in 1974. He was only 62. Patricia and Martin's young children, I think they were 4 and 5 at the time of the murders, had to grow up without their parents and their maternal grandmother, Mary Wilson. In 1974, they also lost their paternal grandfather as well. What a horrible amount of loss for children so young to have to bear. This case is, of course, still unsolved today. If you have information about the murders of Patricia and Martin Dumler and Mary Wilson, if you have a tip, if you have an inkling, if you overheard something at some point, please submit a tip. The Ohio Attorney General's Office has a website with what they're attempting to do is compile all of the unsolved murders in Ohio, and it's a very good website. I have to say, I look at a lot of other states, and Ohio's got a good one there. Other states around in the Midwest could really use a similar system. But I'll post the link in the comments section of the video. And then I'm also working on coming up pretty soon the Bricka family murders from 1966. Because I do think they're related. I think they have a lot of commonalities. Rest in peace, Patricia and Martin and Mary Wilson. You deserved a lot better. And you deserve to live your whole life, and your children deserved to have you in their lives for a lot longer. Thanks for listening to the video. If you care to hit the like button, likes don't mean that you like this horrible thing that happened, but it means you're hoping for justice in this case. YouTube is an attention-based place, and the more attention a video gets, the more likely it is to get spread around, shared, to enter other people's algorithm. And we might just get a case in front of the right person who's been wondering, wow, I have this information, but I don't really know what to do with it. Or someone who just might see something new in the case when they go to research it on their own too. They might see something that nobody else has really seen or paid attention to before. So sharing the cases, sharing these videos is a great idea. Thanks for sharing them on your own social media. Thanks for hitting the like button, the thumbs up button for justice. And thanks for watching. We might be able to solve some murders together, I think. I hope you're having a good day, and thanks to all the subscribers. I appreciate that. You never know what we can do together in our little crime-solving community here. So let's work on that. All right. Thanks for listening.